Welcome back. Today we are going to be discussing Chapter 3 of Priscilla Presley's new book, Softly as I Leave You. If you missed the reviews for Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, just go to my channel and you'll find them there. Let's get started. Priscilla starts this chapter with saying that although she kept the Presley last name after she divorced Elvis, she was not the same Priscilla Presley. And she describes this as an identity crisis because she was always known to the world as Elvis Presley's either girlfriend or wife. Ever since she was a teenager, she was associated with Elvis Presley. She also says that she considers this her second identity crisis, the first one being when she was younger and found out that the man who she thought was her biological father was indeed not. She goes on to detail how she learned that her biological father was actually a man by the name of James Wagner, who was a United States Navy pilot. Her mom met him and fell in love with him when her mom, Anne, was 18 and had been married just over a year when James was killed in a small plane crash that his friend was piloting. Priscilla at that time was 6 months old. Priscilla says that her mom would take Priscilla to go visit her paternal grandparents after her father was killed. But all of that stopped when Paul Beaulieu had entered the picture. When Priscilla was 3 years old, Anne met Paul and married him. Priscilla explains that Paul was really jealous of James and had made Anne promise to never speak of James, not to bring up James, not even to Priscilla. So for many years, James Wagner was Anne and Paul's little secret. And one evening while her parents, Anne and Paul, were next door having dinner with a neighbor, Priscilla went rummaging through her mom's closet and found this suitcase-like box. And that's where she found pictures of her mom holding baby Priscilla with this man that she didn't recognize. She called her mom. Her mom came home right away and explained to her the whole story. But she made her promise. Anne made Priscilla promise not to tell her siblings, her half-siblings at this point. Her siblings are the kids that Anne had with Paul. She had Priscilla promise not to tell her siblings what the real story was, and that Paul was not really her biological dad. Priscilla ended up telling her siblings years and years later after her divorce with Elvis, because it turned out that a journalist had found out the truth and was going to publish an article about it. She says she did eventually reach out to her biological grandmother and uncle, and it turns out they had been following her for years and had just given up the hope that they would reunite. But she did say that with them getting back in touch, it did help Priscilla to become whole again with her paternal family. So now Priscilla says, post-divorce from Elvis, she was trying to find her own identity because she had adopted his identity for so many years. She started wearing fashion that was bold in color, different patterns, which Elvis didn't like. She's experimented with different hairstyles and hair colors, parting her hair down the middle, which apparently Elvis hated. Who knew? I didn't know that. She goes on to say that she got her sense of fashion and style from her mom. Her mom, I guess, was always dressed impeccably, from what she says in this book, and that her mom had modeled before she had married, and that Priscilla said that she had also modeled very briefly after finishing prep school, charm school. Priscilla says that her path into fashion was natural to her. She just enjoyed fashion very much, embellishing sweaters from when she was younger before Elvis, just doing little tweaks to her outfits. She says before she divorced Elvis, she spoke with a friend of hers, Olivia Biz, who owned a fashion boutique in Beverly Hills. Priscilla wanted to go into business to buy a piece of the business, like partner up with Olivia to open up their own fashion boutique, which they did, and that was called Biz and Beau. Priscilla says that Elvis liked Olivia, so he was completely okay with them going into business together. He agreed to it. So Biz and Beau, ran by Olivia and Priscilla, was a very successful business. Priscilla says it opened up many opportunities for her, especially in meeting celebrities like Cher and Liza Minnelli, who would go to their shop. Before this business opportunity, most of her friends, or all of her friends, she said, she had met through Elvis. But through this business, she was meeting friends on her own, not related to Elvis. Priscilla says that one opportunity that presented itself soon after the launch of Biz and Bo was an interview with Ladies' Home Journal. And she said she had never interviewed before, and this was her first. She was really, really nervous, but it came out really well. She said after a few years of owning Biz and Bo, it just became too much. People were finding out that she was co-owner of Biz and Bo, and so these Elvis fans would show up and stand and peer through the door, and some would even go in and try and ask for an autograph. And it got to be too much, and the staff didn't appreciate it all too much either. So she ended up selling her shares or her partnership back to Olivia. Priscilla says that even when she was a business owner, when she had co-owned Biz and Bo, she was still a devoted full-time mother to Lisa Marie. She got Lisa up every morning, made breakfast, got her ready for school, did her hair, and then was home in time to make dinner and reach her and tuck her into bed. So selling the business back, it just made things a lot simpler for her to be a mother again to Lisa Marie Presley. Priscilla said that she was still trying really hard to keep Lisa Marie out of the public eye. At this point, Lisa Marie still splitting time between Priscilla and Elvis. She says it was a challenge keeping Lisa Marie out of trouble. And she described Lisa Marie as strong-willed and stubborn and tended to barge into situations without truly thinking about it or thinking ahead. Priscilla details the time that Lisa Marie told Linda Thompson, "My mommy doesn't like you." And it was because that Lisa Marie told Linda that it was because Elvis took Linda on tour more often than Elvis took Priscilla on tour. Linda and Priscilla both found this funny, but Priscilla did say that Lisa, quote, liked to stir things up. And Priscilla talks about after selling the business, she was able to pick up various gigs or jobs, one being a spokesperson for a line of hair products, and she did some commercials. Priscilla talks about one opportunity that was presented to her that she knew she didn't want any part of it, and it came from Playboy. They wanted her to do a photo shoot with them. And she was familiar with Playboy. She said that the boys in Elvis's entourage, they all had copies of Playboy, but she said it was one thing to know what was in it and another thing to actually picture herself in it, so she declined. Priscilla says in 1975, after 3 years together, her relationship with Mike Stone ended. All she says about it is she describes it as, quote, good years, and that their interest diverged, and that she learned a lot from him. That's all she says. And shortly after their breakup, she started dating Robert Kardashian. That's right, the Robert Kardashian. And she was introduced to Robert by Joan Esposito. Remember Joe Esposito? His ex-wife. Because Joni, at that point, was dating Robert's brother, Tom. Priscilla describes him as a sweet man, but after a few months, they ended up separating. She says that his work schedule as an attorney was very demanding. And so by the time the weekends rolled around, he worked long hours. So all he wanted to do was hang out at home and just have a quiet night in. And she was more adventurous and outgoing by nature. And despite knowing that he wanted to get married, she knew it wasn't gonna happen. So the relationship ended. She says that she and Robert remained friends afterward, and Kim Kardashian had actually, shortly before Robert had passed away, Kim Kardashian had called Priscilla from the hospital, and Priscilla was able to have one last conversation with Robert. And she describes Robert as, he was the kindest of men, and I remember him with great affection. Priscilla next dated Ellie Ezerzer. He was a hairdresser from the Vidal Sassoon Salon in Beverly Hills. And she said that he was very passionate, but also a very jealous person. And she details a situation where she and her sister Michelle went to Hawaii. They shared a room together, and one of Priscilla's friends was a well-known singer in Hawaii. So she and her sister went to go see him. And after his show, the three of them, along with a couple of other of his friends, went out to have some wine and just to chit chat. They got up to back to her hotel room around 1 a.m. and the phone was ringing, and it was Ellie. And he was furious that she was not in bed. Yeah, I guess she told him she was going to be in bed, and she wasn't. And it turned out that Ellie had, unbeknownst to Priscilla, flown to Hawaii to I guess spy on her, to catch her, just to check up on her. And she was pretty rattled by that. She was afraid that that was going to be some type of pattern that was going to happen all the time, him sneaking up, and just the jealousy. She just said she couldn't live with. So the relationship ended after a few months. Then not long after that, after Ellie, she was introduced to Kirk Kerkorian. And she didn't know much about him other than that he was wealthy and that he owned half of Las Vegas. He was about 30 years older than Priscilla was at the time that they met, and they became friends. And one day he invited her to go to con with him and some friends, and she was excited because she'd never been. They were going to go on his private plane. So she says that she was so naive back then that she just took it as a friendly invitation to go to see his favorite city. It wasn't until she was there, they landed, and that he had arranged for them to have two connecting rooms together, where she realized that she had put herself in a predicament that she was not ready for. So Priscilla ends up booking a flight back home, and then she had to tell Kirk later on that day what was happening and that there was a misunderstanding. And she says that he was a true gentleman about it, and they remained friends, and he never made her feel bad about that. And Priscilla says that she was still at this time dealing with Elvis, who was still calling her randomly during the day and at night. She talks about how one time Elvis called while she was sleeping in bed next to Robert Kardashian. It was 2 a.m. The phone rang, and she jumped up to get it to answer before Robert woke up. And Elvis dives in right away about talking about the show that he just finished, and that how great it was, and just gushed over it. And not once did he, she says, as usual, did not say hello, how are you? And it never occurred to him that she might have been sleeping when he called, or that she might have been sleeping next to another man. And she also says that had Elvis known that Robert was there, he would have, quote, probably gone ballistic. And she says that he always carried a loaded gun, or more than one loaded gun. And then that's all she leaves it at. So we can only assume what she means, what Elvis may have done. They eventually hung up, and she went back to bed, and Robert was still sound asleep. All right, that's the end of chapter 3. So stay tuned for chapter 4, which is titled Saying Goodbye. This is the chapter where the events leading up to Elvis passing, and then the aftermath with immediately after with Lisa Marie. So stay tuned.